Designing your own liveries in iRacing does not have to be difficult or expensive. In this video, I'll show you a step-by-step process to take advantage of the base livery templates in the sim to quickly make paint schemes that are authentic and appealing for free. To get going, you'll need to have some software to create your livery. I recommend a piece of free software called GIMP. Download and install it, and then grab the paint template of the car you want to design a scheme for. Open up the template in GIMP and you'll be presented with a top-down schematic of the livery design. Just to say, your version of GIMP may look or be organised differently to mine, but don't worry, the core functionality should be the same. The design is organised in layers, which you can see on the bottom right hand side of my screen. First things first, turn on the wire layer, which allows you to see the contours of the chassis. Then scroll down to find the car patterns layer and turn it on. This will apply the default iRacing schemes, which you can cycle through, turning off the ones you don't want until you reach the base design you plan on editing to create your livery. Once you've found it, export the scheme to your iRacing Paint folder. This will allow you to view your design in the iRacing Paint screen itself, so you can check regularly on the design as you go. Now it's time to get painting. My number one tip here is to think about how the paint scheme will impact the visual appearance of the car. So to get started, I'm going to use the existing shapes on the default template to create a black lower portion of the car. To do so, I'm going to select by colour and hit the red portion of the car while the paint layer is highlighted. Now only the red sections of the car will be editable until I remove that selection. I'm going to select a paintbrush and start shading in this section of the car. Now let's check how that looks by exporting the scheme again and checking out the iRacing paint screen. We're going to be switching between these views a lot during the design process. Now it's time to extend that black section to the nose, again using the existing green curve as my guide. I'm going to repeat the process exactly, but then when we get to the front of the car, I'm going to have to freestyle a little bit and reduce the size of my paintbrush. Don't worry about being too precise just now, you can always tidy it up later. Once again, we check our work in the iRacing paint screen and it's providing the effect that I'm looking for. Now, I want to keep the green curve at the bottom of the chassis, but get rid of almost all other design elements of the base template. So let's use our paint fill tool to start doing that with this blue section. A quick tip here, to get a clean finish you'll want to experiment with the right fill threshold in the right hand column. Leave this too low and as you'll see now, all of the blue won't disappear. Raise it up until you get the end result you want, and remember, you can always tidy things up with the paintbrush afterwards. I'm going to do the same with this other green section on the side pod and then check my work in the iRacing paint screen. Now it's time to look to the nose of the car, and this will be slightly trickier. Simply paint filling this existing shape will remove the green curve that I want to keep. So I'm going to use a tool that allows me to highlight a custom area and then shade out a section that I don't want, breaking the connection to the green curve that I want to keep. Checking in on the iRacing paint screen, you can see that this has worked, and and it's now a simple job of removing the remainder of that green section and tidying things up a bit. We're left with some other areas of the car that I want to clean up too. We'll remove the green and blue sections on the various aerodynamic elements, panels and rear wing to maintain the sweeping curve, but creating a much cleaner and more authentic design for the car. I'm also going to paint the halo section black, as I think that looks ace in this design. Now I know the chassis map for the Super Formula lights well. If you're just getting to know which bit of the schematic corresponds to different sections of the car, you can always scribble on different parts, export and check it out in the paint screen to quickly understand which section is which. And now the main elements of the design on one side of the car are finished. It's time to copy them over to the other side of the chassis. I'm going to use the rectangular select tool to grab the half of the car that I've been working on, then float it to a new layer. I'm going to right click on that floated selection in my layers menu and make it a new layer. I'm then going to duplicate it, rotate it 180 degrees, flip it and very carefully move it up the design to match up. Take this bit nice and slowly and use your up arrow key only. It will be much easier to ensure it sits in the right place to be symmetrical. And of course use the wireframe to help you too. Then I'm going to merge my new layers down back into the original template layer and fill in any areas I wasn't easily able to copy over before exporting the design again to check out how it's looking. Now it's time to finish designing the trim, in particular the rear and front wings. I'm going to make these sections black as I find it helps bring extra definition to the colour scheme and provides continuity with the black sections on the underside of the side profile of the car. If you're unsure when it comes to complex areas like the front wing, you can always work on one side of the car first, check it out in the paint screen, and then when you're happy, repeat the process on the other side. And here is the finished livery design scheme. It's nice and simple, but with a much more realistic and racy layout than the base template we started with. Now it's time to start applying the colour scheme. Now DHL is going to be my primary sponsor here, so we're going to open as layers a PNG logo that I downloaded and use it to grab the colours I need for the scheme. Once we've got it, I'm going to grab those colours and start applying them to the chassis using the select by colour function and then painting in the different sections. You could use the bucket fill, but I find it sometimes leaves some jagged edges, so see which works for you. Once the yellow is in, I'm going to move on to the red accents and then check it out in the paint screen. Remember to take a closer look using the zoom functions and you can clean up any areas that are a bit messy. Now it's time to apply sponsor logos. I've kept this design deliberately simple because in the end, race cars are essentially moving billboards for sponsors, and this way the scheme allows plenty of room to give brands a prominent position. Once again, I highly recommend you work on one side of the car at a time here. I'm first adjusting the DHL logo to fit on the side pod, as it's the main brand on the car. This will take some trial and error given the curved nature of the chassis. One thing you'll notice is in rotating the logo, the yellow background is now overlapping the red curve. To prevent this, go to Colours and select Colour to Alpha. Hit the colour you want to become transparent, and that will fix the issue. One other thing I like to do at this stage is create a group in my layer list for sponsor logos on the car, which will help hugely in keeping them organised and make it easier to copy them over to the other side of the car later. Now I've repeated this process with a handful of DHL inspired logos. The trickiest logo to include by far was the Honda badge on the rear wing, due to it having a slot to accommodate. My tip here is to include 2 logos and use the green lines on the wireframe to help you judge where you need to crop each. Now it's time to copy the logos across to the other side of the car. We're going to select our group of side profile logos, which does not include those on the wings or the nose of the car, and follow the same process we did earlier. Duplicate the group, rotate 180 degrees, flip and position. As you can see, that's worked, but the logos are running backwards. Where the logos are horizontal on the car, it's a simple job to highlight them individually and flip them. For others, you'll need to rotate them manually until you're happy. And there we go, our finished design, which remember, all came from this pre-existing template. And of course, you can use the techniques in this video with other pre-existing templates too, to create a unique design in a relatively short space of time. I hope you found this guide helpful, and if you have, please do leave a like to help others on YouTube find it. Let me know in the comments if there are tips that I've missed, or if other videos like this would be useful to you, and I'll see you on the next one.